It's the centrepiece of the government's reforms to the welfare state, and today the work programme begins.
It's hoped the scheme will help 1 million people off benefits and into work by paying private companies, public sector organisations, charities and voluntary groups to help them get a job, providing they keep it. But will it work?
Join us to talk about the programmes are Neil Lee from the Work Foundation and Roy O'Shaughnessy from the Careers Development Group, one of the only two charities taking part in the scheme.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Very good morning. Now, first of all, I wonder who can give us the best sort of mug's guide to what's different about this scheme from what's happened before?
I'll try. Thank you. Previously, the contracts have been very prescriptive. And, for example, people have to come to a centre, they have to stay in there for a number of weeks or months, and the providers get paid based upon the services that they've given that individual. And there's been a sense over the last several years that a black box approach was required if we were to do more one-on-one training.
What's a black box approach?
Well, a black box approach says that you won't be told how to help get the person into a job or keep them there. That will be up to you working with the individual based upon their unique needs and problems. But you will only get paid, whereas previously you got paid when you got them into the job, you now only get paid when you've got the person in the job and have kept them there for up to 2 years.
So it incentivises, Neil, the companies providing the training and the help to actually make sure that that is the right training and help and the right job for the individual.
No, absolutely, and that's a really good thing. There's still a risk that the companies will cherry pick within these groups, though. So essentially, the government's been quite clever in what it's done is it say you'll get more money for getting someone who's really hard to reach into work than you will for someone who's a bit easier to get into the labour market.
Well,
but within those,
so hang on a second. The government is saying we'll give you money for those who are harder.
Yes.
To find jobs for, but they're exactly the sort of people you want to find jobs for.
Exactly, and that's a good thing, but then within those groups there's a danger that the providers, the people who are trying to get people into work, they'll focus on the easiest to reach within those groups. So
the easiest to reach amongst the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got an email in. I think a lot of people will be thinking along these lines. Julie Lyon has been in touch. She said these people, and she's talking about the people, the long-term,
yes.
I guess these are long-term unemployed people on benefits.
Yes.
These people, she says, just keep going around the system. They'll do the programme for as long as they have to. They'll be counted as a success, and then as soon as possible, they'll be signing on again. There'll always be some people who are never going to work and you'd never wish to employ. Now, there is that thought process about this. Might sound quite cynical,
yes,
but there is that thought process.
There is, but it's not accurate. The vast majority of people who are unemployed do want to work, and they've got some barrier that's holding them back from doing that. The great thing about this program is that you don't get paid unless the individual stays in work, and the individual is encouraged to stay in work because their benefits will be affected if they do not. And if a person stays in work 6 months, it's proven that the chances of them actually dropping out of the market drop so drastically that for the first time in 80 years, if this program works the way we all think it can work, we will dramatically affect long-term unemployment in the UK.
How do you respond to Neil's concern that within those people who are finding it hard to find work, you will pick the people for whom it is easier to find a job?
Yeah. Well, as a charity, CDG only exists to reduce long-term unemployment for those that are hardest to reach, right? But at the same time, what this program does is it forces everyone, even the commercial providers, to not only concentrate on the ones that are easier to place, because yes, let's say there's 10,000 jobs available today, and you've got 10,000 people that are easier to go into those jobs. But over the next 6 to 24 months, we will have to work, and every provider will have to work to overcome the barriers of those harder to employ. So as the economy increases, there'll be the kinds of jobs ready for those individuals.
Some things are within the control of what you can do to help, and in control of the individual themselves, how good they are at their job, how hard they work. Some things are outside of everyone's control, like the economy.
Yes.
Now, if you get a perfectly good person you've trained up, they go into a workplace and there's redundancies, everyone is facing that situation at the moment. I mean, what happens then? They've lost the job through no fault of their own. Has that scenario been thought through?
well, the real danger is actually for the work program providers, so the big companies, because essentially, if the economy doesn't take off and there aren't enough jobs, particularly in some of the less economically successful regions of the UK, there's a risk that some of these providers will find it very, very hard to provide these services for the money they'll be getting.
Provide the jobs?
Well, they won't be providing the jobs, but providing the services for people. They won't be able to get enough people into work to make the money which they need to keep the scheme ticking over.
And you've already identified one of the concerns you have, which Roy has also talked about. But what about, we've got these people who find it hard to find jobs. some of them will be found jobs, but what happens to the rest? I mean, what happens to the rest of the long-term unemployed under this programme?
Well, if you talk to the government, I mean, the government will say that this scheme will help more and more people get back into work, and so there will be a far reduced group of these people. But you're right, it's a big problem. I mean, it's an intractable problem, and it's something which has been it's not going to go away because of the work programme.
I mean, Roy, how many people do you think are you going to be able to help, and how many are still going to be left without help?
The aspiration of the programme is that 50% of the long-term unemployed will be helped. Now, we are very, very concerned about the additional 50% as well. We're working with Mike Nesbaum, ex-chair of Volunteering England, on a national volunteer initiative, 50,000 volunteers doing 2 to 10 hours a month that will mirror every single unemployed person and help mentor them. But I think the reality is that societies only are successful if you create jobs, sustain jobs, and keep people in jobs. So it's not an option to say there's not enough jobs. What we have to do is we have to place the individuals in the jobs that there are, and then we have to create new jobs, and that's going to be the joint public benefit of every person in the UK over the next 5 years to do that.
When do we judge if it's a success? How soon can we say?
2 years we'll know that we are making it work.
Okay. 2 years, Neil?
I think 2 years, maybe even a bit longer. It depends a lot on the strength of the recovery.
Roy, thank you very much. Neil, thanks very much
Thank
indeed.
you. Let's see.